This is the Untold Italy travel podcast, and you're listening to episode number 42.
Ciao and benvenuti to Untold Italy. I'm Josie.
And I'm Katie, and we're here to help you plan your trip to Italy.
Between us, we have many years of travel experience, and we want to help you uncover your own, as yet untold stories and adventures in Italy.
Each episode, you'll hear practical advice, tips and ideas to help you plan your own trips to the magical land of history, stunning landscapes, and a whole lot of pasta.
We'll have interviews from experts and focus on local destinations and frequently asked questions about travel in Italy.
Thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe to our show.
Now let's get started on your regular dose of Bella Italia.
Buongiorno, benvenuti, welcome friends. It's Katie here, and I hope your week is going really well. Today I am going to cut straight to the chase because I am so excited about the guest we have on the show. If you've been listening or following us for a while, you'll know that visiting Capri was not only a highlight of one of our trips to Italy, but also of my life so far. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I know many of you would love to visit or return there one day too. Joining us today is Holly Starr, a fellow Australian who, in, I have to say, one of the most romantic stories ever, visited Capri as a tourist and ended up falling in love and staying there. With her husband, she now runs an amazing food experience business on the island and raises her little caprese family and enjoys life in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I just know you're going to love this episode as Holly shares so many amazing things about Capri and her story. Honestly, it's the stuff dreams are made of. If you enjoy our show, please leave us a rating, review, or send us a message. We truly appreciate it, and it helps bring these stories of Italy to more people. Grazie. Now, as promised, I'm not going to preamble any longer. I'll let Holly tell you all about Capri and how you can make the most of your time there. Ciao, Holly, benvenuti, and welcome to the Untold Italy podcast.
Ciao, Katie. Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me to join the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Holly. I am so excited to talk to you today about beautiful Capri and delve into all its wonder and all its mysteries that I'm very intrigued about myself. But before we start, can you tell our listeners how you, an Australian woman, ends up living the dream and staying there?
I can honestly say it's something I still pinch myself today when I think about how much my life has changed in the last 7 years. I actually left Australia on a solo trip to Italy in 2013. And at that time, I couldn't speak any Italian, but I'd armed myself with my Google Translate and some language apps. And I had no itinerary. So I arrived in Milan and I was traveling around, and at each destination I went to, I would look up where I wanted to go next, wherever I felt like it on that morning. And one day I looked up Google, my Google search engine, and I put in Ischia, that I'd heard a lot about. And I actually hadn't heard too much about Capri, surprisingly. But as I put in Ischia, one of the first searches that came up was a hotel called Hotel Luna, which was actually located in Capri. Anyway, I clicked on it and I looked at the website, and I've never seen more breathtaking images. The scenery looked like it was from a film set. And, it was this hotel perched on these big limestone cliffs that were like epic and fall down into the sea. And for me, like the first images I saw, I thought, I just want to stay there. I don't know where this place is, but I'm going to call them. I called up the hotel and I said, have you got a room available? And the next minute they did. And within a day I was on a train. I jumped on a train and I was in Naples and hopped across on the boat to Capri, and knowing very little about Capri. And I guess I say this often, I was definitely a Capri 101er, and I would say that I've learned many things, obviously now living here, but things I would have done differently if I traveled to Capri now, knowing all those things. So I did actually, when I arrived, I was a little unprepared, and I was in my travel tracksuit, and I was lugging 2 big bags And I was down at the port, and I got asked by the concierge or the porter, can I take your bags? But, I was traveling as a single woman at the time, and I was very possessive of my my bag, my materials. So I was like, no. And big error, 101. I will say that if you're staying in pedestrian Capri, one thing you definitely want is a porter to pick up your bags and transport them to your hotel. So little did I know, I jumped on the funicular and ended up in Capri town, which, like I said, is pedestrian. And at that time, I had a big map, and I had no idea that my hotel was all the way down over many cobblestones, walking through the piazza with, if you've been to Capri, the piazza can sometimes be a little overwhelming. It's often frequented by the rich and famous, and obviously lots of designer clotheswear and people donning the latest Dolce and Gabbana glasses and bags, etc. Sipping on Aperol spritzers. So I think I might have been obviously I obviously stood out. That's what I'd say, but probably for the wrong reasons.
Oh no! Well. One of those things. And I lugged my bag and with my big map and my travel tracksuit down to Hotel Luna. But when I got there, I was in paradise. So I knew that the hotel I'd chosen was exactly what it appeared to be on the website, and I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And anyway, the first evening I sat at the hotel restaurant and ate my meal, and the next day I had my first the bar manager I had become acquainted with very quickly after I had my first Aperol spritz, and he was giving me tips on things to do on the island. And on the first full day, I did the most amazing walk along the Pizza Longo. I'll talk about that later because it's one of the most amazing things I love to do in Capri. I fell in love with the nature. That's the first thing I fell in love with. I did this walk, and traveling alone, I know that there's many times like I wanted to turn to someone and say, "Are you looking at this? Is this for real?" I was literally I was breathless, like what I was seeing. Anyway, long story short, that was my second night, and the bar manager asked where I was eating dinner, and I didn't know at that stage, and I asked for a recommendation, and he recommended Michelangelo. So off I went. He made a reservation for me, and off I went for my table for one at Michelangelo. And as I walked in, I saw this handsome man giving a beautiful big smile, and I was doing the same. And I can't even explain it. Like we were just smiling at each other. And anyway, long story short, he sat me down, and I had my book on the table, and I was just observing the scene, and I had ordered my meal, and towards the end of the meal, I thought, I'll get the check now, and the first time I asked for the bill, I was like trying to speak my best Italian, like il conto per favore, and next minute, like I saw Gianluca like nod, so I thought, yes, he understands me. Okay, I'll just wait for the bill. And then the first thing that comes out is a dessert. It was actually the torta caprese limone, which is absolutely delicious. And I don't normally eat dessert, but I can tell you it took my breath away. That one too, the dessert, as well as the nature of Capri. Everything was taking my breath away by this stage, and I'd only been in Capri for 2 days. But yeah, and then I said I didn't order this, and he said, I know. And I went, okay. And then the next thing is he came past and he said, but this is the torta of my mama. And I thought to myself, oh, well, I better eat it. So then after I finished the torta caprese, I thought I'll ask for the bill again. And by this stage, I'm looking at other tables, getting their bill and slowly leaving. And here I am again, il conto, per favore. And a glass of red wine appears. And I'm like, I didn't order this. And he's like, I know. And I'm like, okay. And by this stage, I'm like, this is getting weird. I don't know if he doesn't understand me or what's going on. And then, by the third time I asked for the conto, a limoncello came out, and I thought, okay, this is getting crazy. And so, and at this time, actually, there was literally only one table left. And by the time the other table left, I thought to myself, I'm just going to ask one more time, il conto per favore.
And next minute, Gianluca came over with his order pad and he put it on the table. And he said in broken English Italian, and I could understand enough, was that you've eaten. I haven't. Now, how about you serve me? And I thought, wow, this is hilarious. He's playing a joke on me. And I thought, I'm in Capri. Why not? Let's just run with the experience. And I got up and I pretended to be a waitress. And I literally set a table for one. And I led him to a table. And I took his order. I went into the kitchen and gave the order. And he was just laughing. And, the staff were laughing. And they couldn't believe that I'd played along with the joke. And after that, he was like, you must sit with me then. And literally we had Google Translate and these language apps. And that's how we were communicating. And I don't know what we were saying or what problems we solved that night. But I know we had great fun. And we finished up with him walking me home to my hotel at 3 or 4 in the morning. Well, it might have been even later. And that was that. And, I put it down to a beautiful evening. It was very, everything was unexpected. And the next day I didn't know if I'd hear from him again, but I only had another night in Capri. So I did actually get a message from him and on Messenger, and he asked me to go for a walk. And I just thought, realistically, the next day my head came out of the clouds and I went, I've got one more night here. I'm probably never going to see him again. So I said, thank you. And thank you for last night. It was lovely to meet you, but no. And then he wrote again and said, how about an aperitivo? And I then thought, I don't know, maybe no, I still think no. And then now I know this, now I know him. And since moving here, this is a big thing. He said, okay, well, I'm going to leave my restaurant and pick you up and take you to another one. And I thought to myself, okay, that's nice. I'm here one more night. Let's go out for dinner and see how things are. Anyway, long story short, it was a beautiful night. And the next day I was supposed to be leaving, and I rocked up at his restaurant, Michelangelo, at lunch service, and I wanted to say goodbye. It was busy, but I just put my bags down and went for a walk, came back when it was a little quieter, and he just looked at me and he said, you can't leave. And I said, okay. And he said, now please stay with me. And I did. And I don't know why, everything just kept happening. And it just felt like, even though we couldn't speak the same language, even though it just felt so different. It felt like we'd known each other for a long time without being able to speak the same language. I can't explain it other more than that. We were just, I then checked out of my hotel. I stayed with him for a couple of days, and then I did have to go away. Then I was meeting some friends in Pisa, and I came back, and before I left and went back to Australia, and we went to Positano for a couple of nights together. And then I went back to Australia. And long and the short of it is, 5 months later, I returned in the winter to Capri to see Gianluca. So on those 5 months when I was in Australia and he was in Capri, we were writing on Skype every morning and night. It was a lot of work, actually, because I had to, with the language problem, I would get the messages would come through on Skype in Italian, then I'd put them into Google Translate, then I would then write back in English to Google Translate and translate them to Italian, and then back through to Skype, and I was like, but yeah, like I said, I felt, and so did he, that we had a connection straight away, and it was something different than anything else we'd both felt before. So, and yeah, in that regard, I came back in November and December, and that led to him coming to Australia in January. And by February, before he left, we were engaged, and then we were married in Capri in May, which was not even a year before our first meeting. So it was, I don't know, it was very, to other people might think that was very quick and also maybe rushed, I don't know, but I don't know, for us, it just felt right. It just, there was there's nothing, I can't say anything more than that. And to this day, we're still so in love. We've now got 2 children. We've been married now for 5.5 years. And despite all the, barriers in terms of, cultures and language, etc., we make it work. So obviously after we got married, we then fell pregnant with our first child, Valentino, and he was born in Australia. But then after his birth, we then I packed up my life in Australia and moved to Capri. And obviously, by that stage, I inherited a restaurant that Gianluca had opened in 2009. So I had to learn things very quickly, learn about the food, the culture, what it's like running a business on a remote island. I learned a lot of things very quickly. So I guess that's how Capri kind of fell into my life. I call it destino. I just couldn't, all I will say is that 10 years ago, I never imagined in my wildest dreams I would be living, married to a caprese or an Italian, living in Italy on an island in Capri and raising my children here and running a restaurant. It's the furthest thing from my imagination.
Well, it's an amazing story and I absolutely love it. And you know what? I think it's the perfect antidote for these crazy times. It's just one of those, sounds like all the stars were aligned and the magic happened. And, you know, if anyone hasn't been to Capri, when you go there, you'll understand how some of this magic was all coming together, because it is such a magical place, isn't it, Holly?
It really is. It really is. And for so many reasons, like not only the first thing, like I said, that took my breath away is just the natural landscape. It's breathtaking. Everywhere you look is a magical corner. And it just takes my breath away. And I still, to this day, every day I go walking, and for us, like on the island, raising the children here, every day I must sound so funny. I tell everybody that I won't always be a tourist. I'm always going, I think every day, I take at least, 100 photos. I always am going to do that. And I tell my kids, look at the Barioni today, and it doesn't matter if it's, raining or it's sunny or it's this day or that day, it's beautiful. The island's beautiful all year round.
Isn't it? It's just one of those spectacular landscapes that until you've seen it, you can't really explain it, can you? Because it's so dramatic and it's so blue and it's so green, and you've got the waves crashing and you've got the flowers springing up everywhere in the springtime. I honestly fell in love with that place. I was heartbroken to leave, and every day I wear my Giardino di Capri perfume just to take myself back there. Oh, so we can talk about this for ages, just how much amazing stuff. But specifically, what can people expect when they get to Capri?
Well, and that a response to that can definitely depend on what time of year you come. So I think the first thing I'd probably have to say about the island is it is what could be typically known as a resort island. So officially the summer season starts around Easter, and it runs to generally around the end of October. And when I say the official summer season, that's when, for example, the Quisisana, the big Quisisana, the Grand Hotel Quisisana, will put their flags up and open, and then all the shops and restaurants will open. And so, for example, in the summer season, there's around 140 to 50 restaurants. However, in a low season, by example, so from October through till March, there could be at one point only up to 5 restaurants open. So most people travel to Capri in the summer season. So if you're going to come in the summer season, then there's a lot of things that you need to expect. One is lots of people. So, in July, so I know Capri welcomes up to 2.5 million people per year, which is actually in July and August, we can see up to 20,000 people arrive per day on the island. And putting that into perspective of the size of the island and the amount of people who are residents of the island is actually only 11 kilometres, takes up a space of 11 kilometres, square kilometres, and there's 14,000 residents. So obviously there are more people coming than there are residents here. So in saying that, so what would you expect, or what you would need to plan around that is I would say visiting the island wisely. So knowing where to go, what you want to do, how to get around the island, etc., can make or break your experience, depending if you're coming for a day or a week or 2 weeks or more. We obviously prefer more.
If you stay forever, like you.
Why not? I say.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's really true. I think this is a time, especially if you've got a limited amount of time, you really need to plan your day out, because otherwise I think there is the potential to be hugely disappointed, unfortunately. And you don't want to be disappointed when you're in Capri. Like, it's not the right answer, is it, really?
No, exactly not. And so I think, so the first thing is you need to know how to get around the island, and also obviously your trip would be organised as to how long you've got to dedicate yourself on the island.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think maybe we should talk about, like, what are some of the things to see, and then we can unravel it back and say, well, if you only had this amount of time, how could we manage that? So, I think the main thing that people want to do, and I didn't even see it. Oh, my goodness, is go and see the Blue Grotto, because it was actually closed that day that we were there due to the tides and the weather. So, Holly, is it worth it?
Look, I always say, people often ask me this, and I very am cautious about recommending things to people on the island, because if it's something that you might regret later, I don't want to in any way influence anyone's decision, and everyone's got a different opinion as to whether something is worth it or not. I guess for me, I believe it's historically fantastic. I mean, the idea that this was possibly the swimming pool of the Roman Emperor Tiberius, who ruled the Roman Empire from Capri to 27 to 37 AD. So, they found the sea god statues down on the seabed of the Blue Grotto, and which you can now actually see in the Museum Casa Rossa, which is in Anacapri. They're on display there. And so I think the history of it is one thing, and, the energy and the feel, let alone obviously the amazing, indescribable blue that you experience, and along with, of course, the theatre of the guys that row you in on the rowboats who sing, Sole Mio and, and the songs in there as you go round. And look, I think, like I said, it's some people, of course, everyone has their different experience when it comes to visiting the Blue Grotto. Again, it can be influenced by the time you go. So, for example, in peak periods, yes, there can be long waits, and that can be difficult for people, especially if they're waiting on a boat and they, in the heat of the summer and in the hot sun, etc. But I will say that in visiting the Blue Grotto, one thing that some people aren't aware of is that you can actually access it by land also. So if you weren't to come by a boat, which is obviously something I also highly recommend, is a boat ride around the island. Seeing the island by sea is very obviously different than seeing it by land, but you get a very different perspective of not just, so there, of course, there's the Blue Grotto, but there are so many different grottos around Capri, and taking a gozzo, which is the traditional wooden boat in Capri, and going with a captain who will take you into these grottos. It's really spectacular. You'll see the white grotto, the emerald grotto, the coral grotto, and of course the Blue Grotto. If you go in, I will say, obviously, just for those who don't know, but if you're going into the Blue Grotto, it's actually a separate fee for entry to go in. So it's not included generally not included as part of your boat ride around the island. So if you weren't to go on a boat ride around the island, like I said, you could access it by land, and you could catch either a taxi or a bus down to the Blue Grotto stop. And there's some stairs that you can go down and access it that way and hop into a rowboat from the bottom.
So that's a good tip. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. But I have to agree with you. The boat trip around the island is, like, we did that, and I'm a real boaty sea person, and so is my husband. So we did enjoy that. But I think you have to get the smaller boats, like you said, because there is this huge boat that goes round, and it sort of chugs its way round really fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked when I saw it. It just kept going. It's kind of like, it sort of bulldozed its way in as close as it could get to the grottos, and then people were hanging off the side doing their selfies, and it kept going. around. And then I felt really special because we got to go through the middle of the Faraglione rocks, and I did get a kiss, not from my husband, but from my little son.
I was going to say, so it's called the Lover's Arch, and it's, the theory is that, the legend has it that, you kiss underneath the Lover's Arch and you will have eternal love.
Oh, I'm glad of that, because yeah. But I mean, I did feel kind of sorry for the people that were on the big boat, because I'm sure, everyone's got a certain budget and they can do different things. But I think if you could afford it, you would want the smallest you could get. That would be feeling.
No, I definitely say to people, especially if you're not a frequenter to Italy or to Capri, so this might be the one time that you visit in your life, or in at least 5-10 years. If you think of it like that, make it spend the extra money to have the experience that will blow your mind. I would say that a Gozzo boat, obviously they're very, very traditional. There's a whole different range of Gozzo boats that either leave from Marina Grande, or you can get one that leaves from Marina Piccola, which is the small port on the other side of the island. And your captain is generally, if not caprese, obviously somebody that has frequented the island or lives here in the summer season, and he will tell you everything about the island, so all the nooks and crannies, and I think the good thing is that you can do your boat trip the way you want. So especially if you have a private captain, if you want to know the history, they can tell you the history. If you want to lounge with the music on, they'll put the music on. If you want to jump into the sea, you ask them where to stop somewhere where they can jump into the sea. Do you know what I mean? Or different people like to hire a boat and then get them to take them to one of the beach club restaurants and have an afternoon at a beach club and then continue their boat ride. So you have more flexibility when you hire a private a Gozzo with a captain. You have more flexibility about what experience you're after in Capri. So obviously there is a different range. There is the boat you were talking about. There or a range of different boats that can take you around with a lot more people. And I will say that obviously you don't get the same experience. It's over a microphone. You'll hear the history of the island. So it's very little, if any, chance to ask questions or to really delve deeper.
Yeah. And look, everyone's style of travel and experience and budget is very different. So, yeah, it's right. You have to make choices along the way, and you just need to do what's right for you, I think, in the end.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree with that.
Okay. So once we've been around the water, because it is just, honestly, it's so spectacular. Just like Holly was saying, you just pinch yourself every time and go, is this for real? Like, it looks like heaven or something. I don't know. And then you arrive back. Usually they arrive into Marina Grande, don't they? If you're coming from Sorrento or the mainland. And then you go up the funicular. And then what do you find at the top there, Holly?
Okay, so I might explain it like this. Okay, Capri is actually broken up into, I would say 5 suburbs, 5 neighbourhoods. So Marina Grande, where you arrive, this is the port. And like you said, the boats come from Sorrento, Amalfi Coast in the summer season, Naples, and can come from Ischia in the summer season. In the winter season, just from Naples and Sorrento. So Marina Grande is there. Then there is Capri town, which is the historical centre of Capri. And you can access that by the funicular, which is like a cable car. And that takes you straight up the mountain, and you'll arrive in Capri, which is pedestrian only. As I was explaining when I first met Gianluca, Capri town is beautiful and historic. But like I said, you've got to have your walking shoes on and ready to walk over the cobblestones all around that part of the island. From Capri town, so you'll first come when you get to the top of the funicular, you will come to the Piazzetta. The Piazzetta is what some people call the living room to the world. It's where the rich and famous, the VIPs all sit and enjoy, Aperol spritzes, like I said. And it's a different experience. It's something. It's very special. I do believe it's so characteristic of Capri, and there's 4 bars that all face each other with their cane chairs, and it's all about getting dressed up and Italian style. Like, I think it's beautiful. Like at first when I obviously I've changed my opinion now. At first I found it a little overwhelming and pretentious, but after living here, I see like that it's, there's one thing locals sitting down and enjoying their Aperol spritzes, but also seeing people from around the world, sitting in the piazza and enjoying the atmosphere, soaking it all in. So for me, that's beautiful, and obviously a place that I would say you have to walk through or visit or experience and sit down and enjoy either a cafe or an Aperol spritz. Look, I know it's expensive, but you can, again, experience that in two ways. You could also have your coffee at the bar, but, the best thing to do is really sit down and enjoy it. And, if it's only one time, then again, choose as to whether to spend your money and, in the square for the Aperol spritz. Yes, it might be expensive, but it's something beautiful that you'll take away.
Yeah, sure. And you're not just paying for the drink, are you? You're paying for the whole experience.
Exactly. No, before going on to the different parts of Capri, I do often get the question about Capri being expensive. And I will say that, of course, it's an island, and a lot of the things, have to come from the mainland every day, just the transportation costs alone, but let alone running a business in terms of, utilities, there's a whole range of factors that come into place as to why, of course, there's an additional price tag when you come to Capri. I mean, being only a resort that's open primarily for 8 months is another factor. So yes, it might be a little bit more expensive, but definitely a part of your experience. So I guess from there, if you're walking around Capri town, there's a number of beautiful things to do in pedestrian Capri. There's lots of shopping if you enjoy shopping. There's the famous luxury designer stores all along down from Via Vittorio Emanuele all the way to Via Camarelli. And this is where you'll find your Dolce & Gabbana, your Gucci, Valentino, etc. And then if you obviously go up a little bit off the laneways, you can find equally, if you're not into the luxury designer brands, you can find a whole lot of caprese artisans making handmade sandals to vintage wear or different clothes wear, jewelry. And like you said, the island's perfume, which it's renowned now in Capri, and it's called Cartusia, and they have a beautiful range of different perfumes, which they say originated from the Cartusian monks that resided in the monastery, the Certosa. Another beautiful place to visit. And so in Capri, things that you could do in the pedestrian area is go down to the Augustus Gardens. Some beautiful, perfectly placed gardens, which has terraces. It's usually €1 to get in, and you walk through the terraces. It's where, if for example, and we'll get back to it, I'm sure, if you only have a short time on the island, somewhere I always recommend to go, because you can get picture perfect, postcard-like pictures of the Barioni, of Marina Piccola, and also of Via Krupp. Via Krupp's one of Capri's most famous attractions. Unfortunately, even since when I first came to Capri in 2013, it's been closed. So it's actually the street. It's a winding street that when you look down, it goes down to Marina Piccola, from the Augustus Gardens down to Marina Piccola, but it's actually closed due to the risk of falling rocks, so landslide. And so in that regard, the only place you can really get a beautiful aerial view of this magnificent street, so it's a zigzagging street that cascades down into the like you said, this crystal blue water, is from the Augustus Gardens, from the last terrace. So I always recommend people to go to the gardens, not only because it's just a beautiful little natural sanctuary in the heart of Capri, but also, like I said, you get your beautiful postcard pic of the Farioni, you get to see Marina Piccola, and you get an aerial view of the Via Krupp, which is the only place you can really get that viewpoint now that it's closed. Pedestrian Capri, lots to do. You can go to the Augustus Gardens, like I said, the Certosa, go shopping. You can walk up to some of my favorite architectural wonders, which I say, for example, there's many eclectic styles in Capri. Capri's very much been influenced not only from thousands of years of from the Roman Empire being here until it's actually had a very eclectic history to different people from all over the world coming and influencing its style. So you can see all different types of architecture. Villa Lysis is spectacular. It was built by a Frenchman in the early 1900s, and it's up on the hill, perfectly placed. Again, these places all have spectacular views. Villa Lysis is stunning, and it's It has views right down to the port in Marina Grande, all the way across to the Sorrento Peninsula. And not only is it historically a very interesting history, the owner also had in there, and you can look up this later, but he put in an opium den, and it was very much a centre of the foreign community, eclectic writers, poets, authors of the time of the early 1900s. It was a centre place to go. I mean, there was lots of parties, etc. And you can read a lot about that if you read in Capri. Being more interesting international community that populated the island anywhere from between like around the 1850s right up until, obviously today. So so the Villa Lice is another place, a beautiful place to look. And like I said before, if you keep following up the mountain of Tiberio, which is the more local area of Capri, again, all pedestrian, you can find the ruins of Emperor Tiberio. Emperor Tiberius's main residence on the island. He's said to have built 12 villas on the island. The one up the very top of Tiberio is called Villa Jovis, and it's open to the public. Like I said, with Villa Lice, it's also open to the public as a museum, so you can walk through the ruins and imagine what it must have been like almost 2,500 years ago when he was there. So pedestrian Capri of itself has so many things to look and see and do. Obviously, like I know I mentioned at the very start, nature. There's 1,000,001 beautiful walks you can walk through Capri in July and August in the peak season when, like I said, there can be up to 20,000 people a day, and you can find places where there's no one and you might not pass anybody. So you would not imagine that you're actually there in peak season. All you need to do is just get off the main tracks and find those places and then experience your Capri. You'll feel like it's a slice of paradise just for you. So for me, like I said, the famous Pizza Longo walk, for me, that was my very first walk I did on the island. It blew me away. And I love doing that walk to this day. And it takes you around the whole coast of the island, and you can go up, around, and back to the Piazza. But before you do so, you've got to see that natural arch, the Arco Naturale, beautiful. And then you can also walk through and go back through a place called Piazzetta della Noce, which is a beautiful lookout point. There are so many lookout points in Capri, and where you can just literally just soak in the natural wonder around you. So putting that aside, that's Capri. That's my little summary of pedestrian Capri.
Who knew that 11 kilometres of island could pack such a punch, Like, seriously, you've got something for everyone. You haven't even mentioned the food yet, Holly. What's going on?
I know. And so I'll quickly run back to just the different neighbourhoods of Capri, because you have Marina Grande, where I said, then you come to Capri town, you've gone up to Tiberio, and then you have Marina Piccola still and Anacapri. So Anacapri means above Capri. Ana means above. So Anacapri is almost like there is two different local governments, Capri and Anacapri, and they are very different. They're very different vibes, different feels. I would say, for example, Capri town, being pedestrian and everything is more, your energy is focused more in one area. There's a lot more activity and I guess buzz in terms of restaurants and bars, etc., and nightlife. Anacapri has a completely different feel, and I would say more like a villagey feel. It's beautiful. We moved up here just 6 months ago now, and we're loving it. It's so. I guess another thing is it covers a lot more space. So Capri is quite concentrated, like I said, and a lot of energy in one space, whereas Anacapri is very spaced out. And for us, it's beautiful to have that space. And there's a lot of amazing things up here to see. Again, shopping, a more local artisan kind of vibe. A lot of festivals are held up here. So, for example, in October we would normally have the Chestnut Festival up on almost the top of the mountain. So you can take the chairlift up to the top of the mountain, Monte Solaro, the highest peak of the island, and then walk down through the Cicella Valley, where we would normally have the Chestnut Festival, and then walk back down to Anacapri. Like, it's very community focused and beautiful. Same, obviously in Anacapri, they held different festivals. Normally they would have, at this time, actually, Sembratata, that's the correct pronunciation, I'm not sure, but it's a celebration of the grape harvest. And, everyone gets together and you'll see the different folklore traditions and lots of dancing, colourful folk groups singing and dancing the tarantella. And it's really beautiful. So, and then just to cap off the island, the last neighbourhood or suburb that I'd like to touch on is Marina Piccola. It's where Gianluca grew up. So it's spectacular. It's where the Farioni is located. It's very much what was a small little quaint fishing town. Is now obviously got more famous over the years with and has beach clubs, etc. But it also has two sort of small free beaches you can go to where the locals frequent, and where you'll find my family, my two kids and Nonna and Zia relaxing in the summer afternoons while Gianluca and I are working. So that's my little rundown on the island.
Oh gosh, I really need to get there again. Okay, so
we're waiting for you.
I'm coming. Can we talk about the food though? We need to talk about the food, Holly. So you own a restaurant, for goodness sake.
Definitely we have to talk about the food. Okay, maybe I'll start by saying that a little bit of history about Michelangelo, the restaurant that my husband opened in 2009. My husband is from a family of foodies, and his father was actually a chef on the island, so is his cousin and his brother, etc. So they have been involved in the local food for a long time. Actually, before his father was a chef, his grandfather was raised pigs on the island. Now I think it's so interesting because I can't imagine if there is even one pig on the island. But clearly, as you can see, or as you would have a feeling, is that the island has changed a lot in the last 60, 70 years, especially with the growth of tourism. And so we've seen a lesser focus on agriculture, which I'll get back to later on that. But in any event, Gianluca's father unfortunately passed away in 2002. And in memory of his father, he opened a Michelangelo. And it actually translates to, so his father's name was Michele, and the name of the restaurant translates to Michele with the angels. It's very, for him, it's a very passionate, emotional connection he has to the restaurant. And his idea and the concept is that he would bring his family's cuisine to the restaurant to share with the world, but also, his passion. I've seen, obviously I never got to meet Gianluca's father, but I've seen photos and he had an amazing smile like Gianluca. And I feel like, Gianluca really wants to, he wanted to share a part of his father's life and their life on the island with the world. And he's done that now for 12 years. So we've, like I said, I feel like I inherited a restaurant by marriage. and he has the way of, he had his concept of the restaurant, of course, before I came along. I couldn't really add anything out. I don't know, I didn't mention before, but, as my career before as a lawyer, I couldn't really bring much to the culinary table. Although other than absolutely enjoying all the food that was coming my way. But I would say that since I've come here, I've learned a lot about the cuisine. Obviously, also something we started after we married, Gianluca actually opened a cooking class, and it was the perfect way for both Gianluca and I to work together and put our skills and talents together. So he's actually the chef in the cooking class, and I come along and talk, and he's taught me everything. So I've learned about, obviously the history of the food, the dishes, etc. And I get an opportunity mostly to speak in English during the class. So I get excited because the rest of my life in Capri is sort of, trying to navigate through broken Italian, it's a broken dialect. So for us, it worked out perfect because his passion, he gets to, share his passion for cooking and his cuisine while I get to, communicate with people. So it worked well. And what we did was we actually started our cooking class with the 3 most renowned dishes in Capri. So if someone was to ask me, what would you eat on the island if you were there for one meal? What would I eat? I would say this. I would say the three most famed dishes, all have Capri in the name. So how couldn't you try it? So we have, of course, the famous insalate caprese. That's the caprese salad. It came from Capri. And then we have the ravioli caprese, which is a delicious ravioli filled with a goat's cheese called caciotta, which is very local. In fact, back in the day, and it's something I can share a little bit of history on now, is that there is a lot of goats, and you can still see them if you're walking around, especially if you're up on Monte Solaro or in Tiberio. You might often see some of the resident goats clinging to the limestone cliffs and getting their way around. And in fact, there used to be quite a big production of this goat cheese caciotta, and that leading to another interesting fact is that in Italian, goats means or goats is Capri. Capra is one goat. Capri is goats. And often people believe that that's how Capri got its name. But I will tell you, this is a diversion, but I always tell you in class, it's a way to remember that the goat's cheese, the goat in ravioli caprese is Capri, so then you can think goat's cheese and goats. But I always say it's not actually the way Capri got its name. Capri was actually named, they say, most likely by the Greeks after a wild boar that's no longer on the island, it's extinct, and they called this wild boar Capri. So interesting little diversion, but the ravioli caprese, bringing it back, is a beautiful ravioli cheese-filled goodness. It has also a local herb in there called marjoram, and it's obviously topped with the most amazing fresh, rich and sweet tomatoes and basil. And it's honestly delicious. It's one of my most favorite pasta dishes on the island. It's also a very traditional Sunday dish. So, for example, if you're having a family lunch at John Luca's mama's house, it's generally ravioli caprese on Sundays. And obviously then I would also recommend you'd have to have a taste of the island's dessert. I mean, the island's dessert is beyond. It's gluten-free. It's called the chocolate torta caprese. I would also recommend, as I mentioned when I first met Gianluca, the lemon variety. The lemon variety is just as good as the chocolate variety. It's basically, so the chocolate variety is chocolate and almond cake, and it has an interesting history as well, which we always divulge in the cooking class. And along with the lemon, anything lemon in Capri is amazing. And I'll go into that. So the next dishes, so they're the three main dishes that I say, if you're going to come to Capri, why not try the dishes that have Capri in its name?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense. But obviously there are a whole range of other dishes I suggest. I mean, firstly, you're on an island, so that obviously means amazing seafood. So there's a couple of things I would recommend in terms of seafood. If you were to try, for example, the local fish, special fish, I guess, that's caught by hand in between, mainly in the waters between Capri and Ischia, but you can still see this fish quite a long way down the Amalfi Coast. It's called pezzogna. And they cook that in a way, it's called pezzogna all'acquapazza, which means fish in crazy butter. But actually a beautiful dish, and it's really light, and it's cooked with tomatoes and garlic, and it's you feel very island-like when you're eating it. It's very local and almost like a little luxury in Capri. The other thing I would probably say is, totani. It's a local squid. It's something, again, that's very caprese. They either stuff it with like cheese fillings or vegetable fillings, or they fry it and put it with potato, and it's amazing. Naughty, but amazing. Yeah, and like I said, there's also anything lemon. That means, try ravioli caprese with a lemon sauce, or fettuccine, or a lemon pasta with seafood. The lemons, Capri's renowned for its lemons, and yeah, they mix it in the cuisine a lot, whether it be from desserts to biscuits to pastas to drinks. You name it, you can get anything with lemon in it. And yeah, other than that, I would probably say, you can get different varieties of Parmigiana Melanzana, but on the island especially, I think the local produce here is amazing, and you can really taste, like, you know, like I said, the tomatoes, like so tasty, the eggplants, the basil, you know, when it's home grown and freshly torn, it's just, you know, a different fragrance, a different aroma, and a different taste. So I know that's a beautiful dish I also like.
Oh, it's, you know, the melanzane parmigiana is my favourite. It's my favourite. But I'm living for this fried squidge. I think I need to try that out. Goodness me. I'm a bit of a seafood lover. Now, but what about the wine, Holly? What about the wine? Are there local wines on Capri?
Well, I will say one thing. There, to put it in perspective, again, taking it back to how big the island is, there isn't actually one, I think, cantina that uses all Capri grapes. Because of the size of the island, you couldn't produce enough grapes to actually produce a wine that would be in enough volume to sell to the world at large, for example. However, we do have lots of local wines here. So there's lots of grapes that might be mixed with some grapes from the mainland, and they are very Campania-based grapes. And for example, white wine, delicious Falangino, you know, Greca di Tufo, Fiana di Avellino, which go perfectly with seafood, and, you know, and mozzarella, of course, which I didn't mention before, but it's something else that, you know, we're in Campania, in the heart of mozzarella. So, so if you want, you know, you can have your chilled white wine with your, you know, insalate caprese with your buffalo mozzarella. It was freshly made that day. Another level. Or, you know, also Ianico, it's a very light red wine, a local grape, and this is also perfect for the summer, even if you can have it a little bit chilled. You know, right through to the more heavier, full-bodied Taurasi that, you know, in Capri is a specialty in winter. You know, when you're enjoying your Parmigiano Melanzana in winter, it's one of those comfort food wines, but of a very high quality. It's a DOCG wine. So yeah, there's a lot of local wines, and there are a few very smaller cantinas on the island that you can experience, or definitely more family production wines that you can experience in different restaurants from Carafes, for example, straight from Carafes. So, but yes, of course, you know, being in Campania, we have best access to all the most richest soil, all the foods and produce that come from rich volcanic soil, you know, being so closely located to Vesuvius, obviously just across the wayside. It's one of the big, I guess, epic things that take up the landscape when you're in Capri. You're looking across right at the Vesuvius, and it's pretty, like I said, like everything here, breathtaking.
Totally. I think it's really hard to over-exaggerate how tasty the food is, really. Like, you have a tomato and it tastes like a tomato of the gods or something. Like, it just tastes, it's got that ultimate tomato taste, doesn't it? And I was just talking to another friend of mine, Danielle Oteri. She's an expert in the Pestum area, and so she knows a lot about the mozzarella. And I said to her, Danielle, this is actually, I had life-changing mozzarella. She's like, yes, I know. It was life-changing.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you on that. The flavors here, it's like, you know, when you put a tomato in your mouth, it bursts in your mouth. Like, it's like burst with flavor. And, you know, I know it's hard to explain until you know, obviously, like, I'm Australian and we have great produce in Australia, but it's just the different flavor. And I think, you know, it really comes with the soil and how fertile it is, and, you know, and also, you know, obviously years and years of traditional farming and ways that they've done things here in Italy. And I think, yeah, and bringing me that, I guess that brings me, because I didn't finish about the restaurant as such. Our restaurant actually has now, so we opened the cooking class. We've been open for 6 years in the cooking class, and we're happy to say that we've had the most amazing experience meeting so many people from all over the world, and, you know, people from, you know, professional chefs to people who just want to come and have a laugh and learn about local life on the island, and enjoy food while they're doing it. And we've also taken our cooking class on the road. So earlier this year, we were actually in collaboration with Italy. We went around each of the US locations. So we were in New York and Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and then ended up in Canada at the new store in Toronto. And we just love the cooking class. We love just sharing, John Luca is the chef, sharing his passion for food, and me, like I said, sharing the island. And I guess this leads to our next venture and our next, life. And so the restaurant actually finishes its lease at the end of this year. So after 12 years of being in business, we're sad to say that Michelangelo is closing, but we're also, in the same way, extremely excited because we're going to launch our new venture next year, and very much involved with food experiences as opposed to a restaurant. So we've actually we've invested in a very big, beautiful sea view garden property, which is located just near the Blue Grotto, and it's a very special piece of land on the island. And we've been clearing it and now cultivating it. And so this year is our first year of our first harvest. It was once a cultivated olive grove over 100 years ago, a cultivated olive grove and vineyard. And so we're actually now reviving the plants that we're finding. We're working on the olive trees. We're planting like a big vegetable garden. And the concept being is we want people to come and experience a different, more traditional part of the island, in that bringing agriculture back to Capri, some of which had been lost, obviously, to the rise in tourism on the island. And so in that regard, we're, like I said, planting all our vegetables. We're hoping to host like a whole range of really unique experiences. So combining food with the culture. So we want to hold our cooking classes, different tasting sessions, aperitivo evenings. There is a spectacular sunset from our property. So we're right on the cliffside. So, in summer, you're looking at the sun setting behind Ischia. You can see the whole landscape of, Procida, the Bay of Naples, right across to Vesuvius. So it's really a spectacular location. But we want to obviously bring more than the location itself. We want to bring the culture back. So we're looking forward to launching art workshops, different cultural workshops, or meditation, relaxation, yoga, etc. But all combined with a food experience where hopefully you can come and pick your own food, and we'll cook it up for you. We have a barbecue on site. We grill your eggplants, grill your food, and make a whole range of different exciting creations with food that you've literally picked from the garden. So we're hoping to hold, we did our very first olive harvest on the property last year. We're hoping to get people involved and come along and do an experience with us, harvesting the olives and then bottling and pressing and bottling your own olive oil. Those sorts of experiences. So we're like I said, it's very sad to be saying goodbye to Michelangelo after 12 years. Unfortunately, also in the circumstances that the world's facing at the moment. However, in the same instance, really, really, really excited about the challenge ahead, and what we think that we can hopefully offer to the world at large, a very different side to Capri. So in that regard, we're keeping positive and looking so much forward to when people can travel again and come and visit us and see, like I said, come and experience our little sanctuary on the island.
Oh, I can tell you right now that I'll be there. I'll swim across from Naples if I have to. Do. But yeah, that sounds so exciting. I think, one thing, and this is a bit of a theme running through like what's happened on the podcast. We've had some really interesting people come along, but just getting back to nature and really understanding the provenance of the food, where it's come from, the love and the care and attention that's gone into the produce, and then further to that, the respect that it's given when you're cooking, that it's just a real part of Italian culture that unfortunately we don't see so much of in other parts of the Western world. And I think it's something, if you do have the time to experience, I think people definitely should make the time to do that, because it could be life-changing. You could get that mozzarella, but at the same time, you could get stars. You might meet a husband, who knows? But in the very least, you'll be in one of the most idyllic parts of the world, and you'll be eating amazing food. And I don't know if there's anything better than that, to be quite honest.
You got it right in that food has played a central part in Gianluca and I's relationship since day dot, from the moment I ate in his restaurant to, you know, obviously then opening our cooking class, meeting people through food, and now obviously growing it ourselves. And I know you, when we were talking about wine before, you know, Gianluca also has grapes on the mainland, and we make our wine production from there. And, you know, we've now since also have our own range of different products that we can ship around the world. So we bottle up our tomatoes and we bottle up our olive oils, etc. And we have these available that we can ship around the world, which especially at this time we found has been great for many reasons. If you're missing Capri, if you're really missing Capri, you can taste the flavors of Capri at home. We send you 6 of Gianluca's family recipes that you can cook up and try with our you know, tomatoes that are bottled up here in Campania, and the olive oils. So I guess it's a bit of fun. It brings Capri to your home, and obviously keeps us like dreaming of when we're going to travel again and enjoy you know, a million places, but also obviously Capri. So
don't worry, folks. I'll give you all the details because you'll be wanting to get some of this. I'm telling you, you've never tasted tomatoes like this before. I'm not joking. It's unbelievable. All right. So when we can come back, because I know it's actually true. Everyone just is desperate to come back, Holly. Just don't worry. We're all coming. We're coming for you as soon as it's possible. We're on our way. I might even swim from Australia. Who knows? I'm not that good at swimming. You know, I think ideally you'd want to spend 2 or 3 days, maybe more, in Capri. But if you only have 1 day, what would you suggest?
Okay, what I would suggest is really plan your trip wisely. Think before about what you really want to get out of the island. As I said before, people come to the island for so many reasons, whether it's the nature, the history, the art, whether it's the beach club environment, whether it's the fashion, nightlife, etc. You know, work out what's the reason why you want to come, hone in on just 1 or 2 of the things that you would like to see, and do those leisurely and explore them deeply, as opposed to running around and seeing the whole island. So I do hear often that people say they've, you know, ticked off Capri, or they've done Capri because they've come for a day. And I honestly, you know, I've been living here for over 6 years. I can't say that I've done Capri. I still am learning things every day. You know, I still get amazed by another walk that I hadn't been on yet, you know. So there's so many things to do on the island. I think, you know, if you're coming for the day, see these 1 or 2 things that you choose, whatever might be, you know, your priority items, and really explore them, and save the rest for when you can come back and stay a while. Because really part of the thing, or part of the fascination and joy of the island is living or getting to experience the island pace, the way of life. And it's a lot slower. I mean, I always laughed at, like, you know, something you often hear in Capri is people saying to you, piano, 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 piano. It means slowly, slowly. So if you're rushing somewhere, everyone's like, piano, piano, like, you know, you're on an island, like, hey, relax, you're in Capri. And I can assure you that, you know, if you're trying to see Capri in a day, you're going to be rushing. And I'll say that, you know, in the summer season in particular, there can be big queues for the buses or public transport. And whilst the island's small, only 11 square kilometres, getting around it in the time frame that you know, to give it any justice, to be able to see different sites in Capri, I really just don't think it's worth the while without being stressed. I think you would feel rushed and stressed if you were wanting to go to Anacapri, Capri, Marina Piccola, and go up to see the ruins. You know, it's just too much to see. So I do, like I said, pick a couple of things, see them, experience them, you know, leisurely, and then come back and stay on the island and really experience the island, the way of life. You know, it's very much a part of the experience, as is, you know, ticking off your must-sees.
Yeah. Wow. So I think, 3 days would kind of, you probably if you stayed 3 days, you probably would never want to leave. So.
Yeah, I definitely say this. So, like, the longer the better, first thing. But obviously, I understand that, depending on your trip to Italy, Capri sometimes can just be a quick visit as part of, the Amalfi Coast or doing the whole of southern Italy. And in that regard, I have a couple of different suggestions, maybe. One, little left of center. A lot of people come to Capri for the day trip. And that means a lot of, how I said up to, 20,000 people can come per day. In fact, I think it's only 10 to 15% of that, those day trippers that come that actually stay the night. So obviously in the evenings, it's a lot quieter, a different environment. It's a very, it's just a different feel. So in the daytime, you have this big amount of traffic coming and going all at the same time. So, early morning, you have everyone arriving, and then in the afternoon, evening, people leaving. If you, for example, were spending a bit of time along the Amalfi Coast, one thing I do suggest to people is how about basing yourself in Capri and doing the day trips across to the mainland? And the reason I say is you're going against the traffic, number one. So you're leaving the island when people are arriving. So, generally when I do, this is the way that we sort of work around it in the summer if we need to go to the mainland, is when you're going against the traffic. So, your boat will be less full, and then you have a different experience on the mainland because a lot of people are coming across to Capri, you're going across to the mainland. So you can visit either from Capri, Naples, Pompeii, do day trips to any of the beach clubs along the Amalfi Coast, or there's ferry lines direct in the summer period to the Amalfi Coast. I think Altrani, Positano, Sorrento, and also there's other boats going direct to. You can go island hopping and go across to Ischia, and different islands that you access then again from Ischia. So there's a lot you can do by basing yourself in Capri, and I know that in the past people have been, I guess, wary of doing that because of the perceived, expense of accommodation on the island. And as I said to you before, yes, some things are more expensive, but again, it's what your preference is. So there is a large range of accommodation options, from 5-star hotels, the luxury exclusive 5-star hotels, to 1-star hotels, to B&Bs, to Airbnbs, to pensiones, to villas and apartments. There's a lot of different options, and it's about finding what's right for you and what budget you want. And that all depends on what you're after, what you want to take out of your holiday. Are you someone that spends time in the hotel or prefer to be, hiking the island? Do you want a pool and a view, or are you going to be down at the beach looking at the view all day anyway? So it really depends. Do you want a local experience, or do you want to be amongst the action and in the center and the heart of the piazza? Or would you prefer to be staying with a local family in Anacapri, learning, different ways of the island? It really depends on what you're after. Are you traveling as a family, or on a honeymoon, or a romantic visit, or are you coming with friends to celebrate, a wedding or a birthday or whatever it might be? Really influences what type of accommodation and, which part of the island you should stay in.
Well, I actually think that's a genius move. Actually, I think you should sort of patent that, maybe. Stay on Capri and go to Positano on a day trip. It's genius, actually. Good on you. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, of course, we all want to hear, but yeah. That's a longer. Yeah, but it's also a way to experience the island, the pace of the island. So when you're, I would say the pace of the island isn't reflective when you come on a day trip, because you see so many people running around on a day trip, and you miss, for example, people ask me, especially in the cooking class, how do the locals get by? And I go, oh, if you want to see local life in the summer, get up early, get up around 7, 8. You will see all the nonnas doing their supermarket shopping. You will see the food getting distributed around the island on the characteristic little, they're called rope cars, carellos. And you will see a different life because everything locals need to get done before the first boat comes that fills up the island, and we can't then hop on a bus. So, we know that we've got to do things either in the morning early or in the evening. And so, like I said, if you're staying on the island for a longer period of time, you start to get to feel like the way of life and how things work, and what you get to see the local life. A lot of people say, it's just this isn't a tourist island. I go, no, there actually, yes, it's 14,000 of us that live here all the time. In the winter too, yes. There are schools here. There's a hospital. We have doctors and dentists, and so a lot of people ask me those sorts of questions about life here. And yes, there is a life. There's a daily life here. There's, of course, we live here. But if you're visiting for a day, you might not see that. You could get lost amongst a sea of tourists, and it can happen.
It can happen. It can. And it certainly deserves to linger a little longer, I think. Definitely. So have we missed anything, Holly? I think we've covered everything. It sounds like I think everyone is going to be ready for Capri, ready and waiting. But I did have one thing, actually. What if you're going on one of these long walks that you sound amazing and definitely need to be done when I don't have a couple of 4-year-olds in tow? What if we got hungry along the way? What would you do then? Because this is actually a leading question, because I found Holly through this idea, and she needs to tell everyone about it because it's very important. I think it's a brilliant idea.
I know. I would say, again, when we opened the cooking class, one of the things that I thought to bring to people when they were visiting Capri was a different experience, because again, like I'd heard, many people would come to Capri and they would think that it was overcrowded, etc. And I would just say I couldn't believe it, because I go on these walks and I don't see people, and like I said, in July and August, and I thought to myself, why aren't people enjoying beautiful food while looking at the Tyrian Sea in awe of, the boats below on these amazing lookout points. So we started up Capri picnics, and what you do is you order online, and we freshly prepare your picnic for your pickup time, and literally you come pick it up. We give you a map. We have personalized maps to all secret locations on the island, and off you go. So you walk to your destination. On the back of the map, it has the history of the location, etc. So you can read and learn, as well as you're sitting devouring beautiful freshly made caprese food for you, and then of course you're experiencing nature. So you get to experience I guess threefold. You got the history, the nature, and the food. So it's we love doing the picnics as well. It's something we're going to offer at our new venture. So, but actually not so much doing obviously the walks anymore, because we have the property is 2 hectares, and there's so many beautiful places where you can set up picnic on the property itself. So we're obviously still going to continue that offering, our gourmet picnics, and obviously our new venture, which I didn't know if I mentioned before, is called the Giardino di Capri. So in English relates to Capri's garden, so translates.
Beautiful.
So yeah, we can't wait to continue doing, like I said, all the things we're passionate about, sharing the island, sharing our love of food, and the family and traditions, bringing back to what you said about food, and it really is a crucial part of Italian culture. It really is, for us, food really, it brings the family together. It's it's how you celebrate love in all shapes and forms.
Oh, you're so romantic. I do love it. So, Holly, I've got a sneaky last question for you. Now, so seeing as you live in one of the most beautiful places on earth, almost paradise, where do you go on holiday in Italy or on vacation? Do you even?
It's funny you say that. No, I look, we don't leave the island often. And as weird as this is, especially, for example, Gianluca's family find that Capri has everything that they need to live comfortably. And they don't often, even go to Naples to pick up things or anything. And I guess a bit of an offshoot story. When it was Gianluca's birthday, for his 40th birthday, we went across to, I organised a lunch in Positano at one of our favourite restaurants over there called Da Vincenzo. And his mum was obviously coming, and his nieces and nephews and some of my family for Australia were here. And anyway, we got off the boat, and I could see his mum walking around in awe. And I was sort of like, oh, when was the last time you came to Positano? And she said it was her first time. And she's lived in Capri her whole life, born and raised in Capri, and had never been to Positano. And, it's a product of how the seasons work here, is that the summer season in Capri, the residents are working because it's a short season and you have to earn enough money to, sustain your family for 12 months. As with Positano, it's very seasonal. And the interesting thing is, so while you're working, it's summer, and, most people travel to these destinations in the summer for their, love of the beach and beach culture and, being by the water, enjoying seafood. But, if you're working really hard at that time, you don't often get a day off to go. And if you do, you're generally not going traveling on that day. Are you normally resting before the next busy week, especially in hospitality and tourism industry during peak period. So the point is that, if you do go somewhere from here, and this is not me personally, but I said, Capri people in generally, after they've worked a long season, they will often head to somewhere where they can get some sun because, again, they've worked the whole summer. And then when it comes into winter, so they might go to Thailand or Canary Islands or to the Maldives or, more recently, a lot of people have been going to Australia and Dubai, etc. In the off season. Obviously, with the restrictions on travel this season, I won't be going back to see my family in Australia. But sometimes we do that. But to be honest, with the kids in school, it's more difficult to travel when you've got a growing family in Capri. So we, and obviously it's school season in full force in the winter. So we don't get off the island much is what I'm trying to answer. That was a long way around about telling you we don't get off the island much. And if we do in the low season, it's very local. We often travel to visit all of our amazing suppliers and providers on the mainland. So we spend a lot of time in Taurasi and in Napolino and different places in Campania. And that's probably the extent at the moment. Obviously, when you've got young children, like as they get older, it's easier to travel to different places. And like I said earlier, we went to earlier this year. I can't believe it was this year. It feels like a lifetime ago. But in January and February, before COVID hit, we were in America. And but that's again, that was a first for us. I hadn't been to America for 25 years more.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was great, But yeah, like I said, traveling. We're happy here. We love everything here. We have family, and for us, going on a hike is just as fun as experiencing some other destination around the world. So.
It's pretty much paradise, I've got to say. It really is. So thank you, Holly. I feel like I've just stepped into the Piazzetta and the sea breezes are wafting over me. And I know everyone needs a bit of Capri in their lives at the moment. So how can our listeners stay in touch with you and keep up to date with the goings on your beautiful island?
Oh, yes. Please do keep in touch. We have our Instagram page, which I'm probably the most active on. By the way, it's all me because it's all in English. As I said before, my Italian pretty bad still. I know I've lived here a long time, but I am also on a piano time frame as it comes to learning the language. But so it's all in English, and I have the Instagram account of the restaurant, which is at ristorante_Michelangelo, and we have also an Instagram account that I'm just setting up for the new venture called Giardino di Capri, so at Giardino di Capri. And on Instagram, I'm very active. So once a day, I do try to upload an Insta story every day of our life on the island, sharing a bit of everything. So a bit of food, a bit of what we're doing that day, bit of the kids, bit of family, bit of views, beautiful views, or, hikes or whatever it might be, bit of history. So we like sharing the island. And yes, you can find us on Instagram, follow us there. We're on Facebook, although I must admit not as active as we are as on Instagram. And you can check out and follow along our websites. Obviously, our Michelangelo website, www.caprimichelangelo.com, is up there and ready. But unfortunately, as I said, we're closing at the end of the year, although you can purchase all of our food products through our website directly. And they have we have a range of different packages that include shipping. So you just need to click on the products tab and then go through, and we have different packs there for our tomatoes, wine, olive oils, pasta, marinated vegetables, everything. You can get a real taste of what we're going to be offering in the new venture next year, the Giardino di Capri. I will say for those, so like I said about how can you keep in touch? How can you keep Capri, live Capri without being in Capri at the moment? Like I said, we have our recipe book, Cook Up at Home, follow along on Instagram. I'm not sure if you have read yet that the best-selling author Kevin Kwan, who was the author of the Crazy Rich Asian trilogy, he just released this summer a book that's partly set in Capri, and he's very descriptive of his the story that's set in Capri. And I mean, I've read the book. Obviously, I can see that it's a great read if you're really imagining and wanting to be here right now. So people have been asking me, like, what can I do Capri related? I want to get, I just want to plan. I want to plan my trip. I want to, do all these things now for next year. Hoping all that is well. And so I say, get in the mood, cook up at home, research recipes, read Kevin's novel. That'll get you in the mood, do all things Capri, but from a distance.
Oh, yes. I know the distance.
Yes, distancing. We're all too familiar with that right now.
We really are. Now, everyone, Holly's Instagram is the stuff of dreams, so do check it out, and it'll brighten up any day, no end, I absolutely promise. Grazie, Holly. Thank you for joining us and taking us on this amazing virtual journey to gorgeous Capri. Thanks again.
No, thank you, Katie, for inviting me to join. I'm very grateful, and like I said, thank you to everyone for listening along.
Okay, I'm just going to take a moment to sigh here. Wasn't that amazing? Holly was so generous with her stories and advice, and there is absolutely no doubting her love of the island, its food, and its people. I actually took her advice and read Kevin Kwan's novel called Sex and Vanity, which, as Holly mentioned, is partially set on Capri. It's such a fun book that is actually loosely based on one of my favourite novels of all time, Room with a View by Ian Forster. Except that instead of Florence, Capri plays the location protagonist of the story. The description of the places and sights of Capri are wonderful, and it's a brilliant escape. Now, don't go expecting a serious literary read. This is a fun and light, and if you ask me, exactly the right tone for these somewhat crazy times. Of course, I put a link to the book and information on all the places and food dishes Holly mentioned into the show notes at untolditaly.com/42 for episode 42. You should be able to click through from your podcast app too, and I've also provided details of the food experiences and parcels Holly and Gianluca are excited to share with you. They are both so clever and creative that I know there is going to be a long wait list to join them in Capri as soon as things open up. So make sure you stay in touch with them if you plan to visit. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it, we'd be so grateful if you could leave a rating or a review in your podcast app. That will bring Holly's incredible story and all the stories of people that we have featured in the show to more people and boost their profile in these very challenging times. Grazie mille, thank you so much, we appreciate you. So now I am off to scheme my next trip and to make sure I build in island time on beautiful Capri. Grazie, thank you for listening, enjoy your week and ciao for now.